International Women's Day. My name is Toke Makinwa, and today we celebrate the strength, the resilience and brilliance of our women, our mothers, our sisters, our daughters, and every single woman breaking barriers and walking an impact. But beyond the celebration, we need real conversations. Women are still judged for how we choose to live our lives, how we speak. Owning our femininity comes with labels and pushbacks. And why? Why is a woman's confidence seen as a threat? Today, we're unpacking it all, and we're talking about what it truly means to embrace your femininity, break free from limiting beliefs, and create a world where women are free to just be and breathe. Now, join the conversation using hashtag Rubbin Minds. Let's get into it. Today, I get to displace my very good friend. Before we begin, I have to introduce you to someone who has been the face of Rubbin Minds, a brilliant host, a feminist, a true he for she, a man who continues to champion important conversations. Please welcome with me, Ebuka Obi-Uchendu. Welcome to the show. Welcome.
That was brilliant. Thanks a lot for being here today to help me do this.
I
don't even know if I should. I'm just going to be an observer today.
Okay.
As a great ally, like you said. And, you know, the word feminism or feminist has become almost taken away from what it truly means, you know, and it's very important that we have these conversations. Actually, International Women's Day just happened, but the whole of March is International Women's Month.
True.
And I feel like more than anything else, today it's very important to have that conversation because I feel like the past week has been a lot.
There's been a lot going on
for,
in the news, right?
for women in this country. It's
and
been
isn't it ironic that it's actually in the month of March?
Literally happening in March. I mean, we started off with, I think it was the Speaker of, or the ex-Speaker now of the Lagos State House of Assembly, Honorable Mojisola Miranda, who was Speaker for 40-something days and was booted out in very dramatic fashion. We're trying to recover from that. Then the whole Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan situation started. And then she got suspended for flouting Senate rules. While no investigation was done to her sexual allegations, you know. And then thirdly, I think it was on Friday, we heard about the CEO of Ikeja Disco, who's a woman as well. We heard about Air Force officers going to the office, putting her in a boot. They locked her up in a boot, beat up staff, seized their phones. All these are alleged, of course. But it just makes you wonder. 3 women in 1 week, highly placed women. Gives you an idea of what happens to women who are not in those positions and what the actual reality is. But
now, I mean, before I start with, you know, the further conversations we're going to have, today you're literally an onlooker.
Yes.
How does that feel, giving up the seats to literally have women, you know, give us your platform to share our thoughts, ideas, and push accelerate action forward?
First of all, I think the show is in great hands, of course. But secondly, I mean, we have brilliant guests today. And I'm waiting to be enriched, you know, by the conversations that will be had today. I've never want to be threatened by honest conversations. And I think Nigerians, and maybe men in particular, should be open to those conversations as well. Maybe that will help us, you know, get to where we should be.
Now, talking about men, you literally went right into my next question. How important do you think it is for men to not only just support, but to be at the forefront of important conversations that you have even raised, you know, with women and International Women's Day and things that have to do with the girl child and women in general?
I think it goes without saying, and this is not just a Nigerian conversation now. We're seeing what's happening in the United States. We're seeing what's happening globally. There's a move to sort of reverse a lot of things now. We hear DEI everywhere now in America, and it's code for so many things, you know. It's almost like, why should, if a woman gets something, she hasn't earned it? And we hear, we know, people who work around women know how hard women work to get to these positions. So when you live in a patriarchal world now, not just country, men hold all of these spaces. And if they are not a part of the conversation, it's going to make things twice as hard, which is why we are seeing the things we've been seeing in the last couple of weeks now. And so it's very important. And I'm hoping to, like I said, get enriched because these guests are looking, I mean, they were fired up before we came on air already, so I know it's going to be great conversation.
I mean, the studio today. Before we actually resume, Ebuka kind of just delved into what exactly we will be touching on. Patriarchy, it isn't just a woman's issue, it's a societal one, and, you know, it affects everyone, from the, you know, regardless of wherever you find yourself.
Once you're human.
It definitely affects you. And we have to have these conversations because it's not every day that women are honored. I mean, Ebuka would disagree with me that we have too many days celebrating women. But apart from Women's Day, every conversation that leads to us, you know, talking about equal rights, equality in the workplace, equal pay, and just, you know, having more women involved in these conversations is one that we'll always be up for. So our guests today, as, you know, we have said, are here on this International Day, Rubbing Minds issue to delve deep into the realities of patriarchy. Joining us is Prudence Stanley Zabulion. She's the creative director of Charis Interior, and Lolo, who I love to call, Omotunde Lolo Adebowale, who is a media personality, just as I am. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
You all look absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And happy International Women's Month.
Thank you so much, Ebuka.
Nice to see.
Thank you. So let's delve right into this conversation. What does the empowerment look like to a Nigerian woman today? You know, someone can sit here and say we've come a long way, but we're talking about the landscape today. What does empowerment actually look like to us today?
Okay, who's belling the cat?
Lolo, I know you're long-winded. You know, whoever is as passionate can take the lead and open the floor.
For me, sometimes I'm beginning to dread the word empowerment. Because when they say empowerment around women, you see them bringing machine, a sewing machine or a grinder or telling us to learn a skill or something. How about the empowerment of our minds, which is the most important equipment to use to be able to power all the other tools? It is every time a woman is empowered in her mind, I think that is where our problem starts from. They're okay if we're empowered with a sewing machine or empowered with a hairdressing tool, but when our mind is empowered, that is where the threat begins. And you're now wondering that, why are we talking from two sides of our mouth? When you say empowerment, it's an omnibus word. That means we can be empowered in many ways. The girl child can be empowered through education. You can be empowered through your skills. You can be empowered to become a financial juggernaut. You can be empowered to become anything. But anytime a woman's mind is empowered, it becomes a problem. And you're wondering that in this time and age, when is the fight going to stop? When are we... Why is it that when it comes to us, it's about empowerment? Are you telling me the men are all put together? They don't need a lot of do-ups, scaling up, upskilling? It has to be us women. We don't even mind. But when we take what is handed, it's still a problem to have. So that's why sometimes when I look at the situation generally, I feel a little bad at times that, okay, they want us to have the candle. They give us the candle, then they snuff out the light. So I'm wondering,
like be empowered, but still put
just stay there. Don't let your... No, be empowered with your skills, but let your mind be little. That's where I find it a problem.
All right, Ms. Prudence, would you like to chip in on that? I also want to just add, you know, you can also shed in what you feel about the role of patriarchy when it comes to women and systemic oppressions, because she started touching on it in terms of giving you the candle, but still wanting to snuff out the light. You know, as a woman, what does that look like for you?
Okay, so I will start with, you know, my personal experience. I have come a long way, but it starts with knowledge of self-worth. We women expect everyone else to do something for us. When are we going to find our voice? So even if the government empowers us, it takes knowledge of self-worth to be able to, you know, effectively push through on the things that we want to do. So I think that this matter is very serious. It is it is really deep, like I always say. So it starts from home. It starts from the way we are wired as the women, because we keep the home. How do you see your female child? How do you see the boy child? What are you telling him? What are you teaching her? So it starts from there.
So what are some daily ways you feel like women experience systemic oppression? I know for the longest, I'll share one and we can all talk about it. As a woman wanting to rent a property in Lagos, you know, the landlord is more interested when it's a woman. They feel if it's a man, there's more financial security. Their heart is a bit down. They feel like they won't have to chase the man around for
Yes.
rent,
Yes.
not knowing that there are lots of women who are actually bringing home the cheddar. You know, if you're a single woman, it's even worse. You talked about the family, which is why I'm asking this question. In what ways, and you know, what ways can we highlight these things that, you know, women are faced with daily? Career opportunity, career choices, just even in the way we're spoken to. In what ways do you think that we, you know, we face these systemic oppressions?
It's in everywhere we turn. Anywhere a woman is trying to assert herself or be visible, you can't be very sure that there's a patriarchal system that is already operating there. So I don't think there's any area that you will say the patriarchy doesn't have hands. Is it the family unit? You know, I used to tell the men that we need to redefine what the modern man is. Before, men used to thrive on the fact that they are protectors and they provide. But unfortunately, those stereotype roles have changed. Now, women have stepped into the role of protecting. They've stepped into the role of providing. So that means the traditional description of a man is changing.
Can I challenge you further? And I don't mean to break this up. I think it's always been. I think the difference is back then, our mothers would, in the name of, again, systemic oppression, you know the way the family is structured, the man is the lead. She might be the breadwinner. We've had people who would say their mothers paid their school fees, but they always thought it was their fathers.
I would even say that is the progressive woman forward. Those were the ones you're talking about, from which some of us were birthed.
Yes.
The ones before, they lived for their husband's pleasure. Many of them are in those homes, not because of love, but because they had a role to play. They needed to be on the farm to procreate. So it's not necessarily about love. So the man feels like, I have the headship. All the challenges that we're having in this present time, that the oppression of the patriarchy is so obvious, is because of enlightenment. Now those things that were in the dark is now in the open. A lot of my mother in her lifetime, I just used to look at her, that why do you like your life this way? You can say this is one thing you did for you and you alone. The you in their time was not existing because men did not see women like somebody that needed to accept themselves. So that's in the home front. Now women are in career spaces. I know many of my friends have lost jobs for having babies. And they are as good as any of their any of their colleagues. But because they need to take a break to be able to take care of home, they are faced with a lot of oppression. And now they are accusing us of being emotional. That is another new one. I'm like, okay, these were the things that men used to say made women special. Why is it now what they use to demonize us?
Sorry to cut in there, because I mean, and I want to play devil's advocate.
Yes.
Because I've been quiet since. And it's because you touched on this now, you know, women, there are things that women will always go through that men can never experience, right? Childbirth, all of those things, which will make you believe that women understand each other better, right? But I see this narrative a lot about women supporting women and how it doesn't necessarily apply that way. And I mean, we saw the example all week, right, with this Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan situation. 3 senators, I think 2 former senators and 1 currently sitting, came out to defend the person she accused. Now, it's an allegation she made, of course, so you can't necessarily say she was right or wrong or whatever. But it was almost dismissive of her entire experience, you know, so it makes you wonder. I'm not saying they have the responsibility to fix it, but what does that speak about in this context of patriarchy and women in situations like this being better understanding of what women go through?
I will
You left that one for her.
I'll answer it, but I want the guest to answer it first before I say something.
Okay.
Okay, so I will speak from a different perspective.
Okay.
And I'm always a believer of the fact that many of these things can be self-inflicted. Toke, if we do not see the man as a competition and the man doesn't see us as a threat, it will be a good society. A whole lot of things will be sorted. The issue is, how do we see ourselves? If we find that there is a threat somewhere, we will be on the defensive. I think we should focus on that empowerment. It's key. How do we treat ourselves? And I'm not saying this in comparison to a man. I'm saying we as women. I have staff, female staff. How do I make them feel? Because they've gone through a lot. They are facing these things we're talking about.
Yes.
But this is an opportunity to be impactful. What are we doing? So I'm coming from that angle, because we have to look at it. If we're trying to solve a problem, it is not just about pointing fingers. We need to know what else we can do to save the day.
Now, while I agree with you, I think you just even added more burden to the burdens that we women have. I have to be honest.
Really?
Yes, I have to be honest. I hear you on empowerment, empowered women empower other women.
Yes.
I understand that it's very important for you as a woman who has been empowered to open, when you walk through that door, you leave that door open for others to come in. But before we even came to be, the dynamic of this competition has always been. And it wasn't, the tone wasn't set by women. Women, are as she said, even to hire a woman in a workplace, you start to think about the fact that she would want to get pregnant. If she wants to get pregnant, she would need some time off. Just even in this industry, shout out to men like Ebuka, Basket Mouth. I can list a couple of them, both who are men who stand for women. We tend to host a lot of shows together. I worked on radio for many years, and on the morning drive, which is the most important show on the radio, people from marketing will come into the studio to constantly add things that could have happened, and they would not talk to the woman. They would talk to the man. So how
even when you're hosting a show.
I remember one time we had to host a show in Abuja. I had been there 3 days before Basket arrived. He was the co-host. I was the host. And then when we're on the stage, before the show goes live, they keep coming to say, this is how you announce. And Basket had to say, hold up, hold up. Toke is the host of the show. I just arrived today. You know, she knows what is going on. I don't know what I'm doing here. Little things like that, which I know you've done several times when we get to host shows. So I don't think it's an empowerment issue. That whole competition thing has always been, a man will be begged to take a certain amount of money to host a show. As a woman, it's like, why should we pay you that much?
Do you know, another thing, I'm looking and I'm laughing because everything we say is important. And none of these issues, they are pivotal and deep-rooted issues that if we talk about just one, we will be here all night, all day. I'm talking about patriarchal mothers and matriarchs, those that feed the system. I don't blame some of them. You know, many of us are creatures of nurture. Many women, there are two sides, at least from research and constant talking about an experience I've heard women talk. There are two reasons I see why women support patriarchy. It's either that is all they know.
Ignorance.
And another thing, that is all they suffered. And many times when people feel pain, it's nice when you feel the same pain. So that maybe when they are internalizing their pain, the trauma of their lives, they want you to experience it also. So that you can truly know what. That is why sometimes I look at them from a point of empathy. Because these are women that they fought to open the door, which was a difficult thing to do. Opening the door for other women. Now they've opened the door, they've left the scene. Now some women fought to find a seat in the room or the door that was opened. That is another set of women. Now the set of women are fighting to keep themselves on these seats that this patriarchy think they've opened. So it's a difficult, every time, every season, every woman faces a different challenge. And for these women, the only thing we can offer them is empathy and knowledge. And the fact that we have to keep speaking our truths. And whether we like it or not, women have to keep fighting. I don't know when this fight will end. When my daughter, I put a camera to her face, and I heard my daughter talking, I said, okay.
At that age?
And she's 20.
Just
and she has an idea of what patriarchy means to her. And that is a Gen Z that doesn't even feel all the pain we felt. So for me, those women that seemingly don't support other women, they tend to lose a lot. Because these are some of the fountains we're supposed to feed from. But when the fountain that feeds you poisons you, the fountain will no longer be fed from. That means algae, other bacteria will live there and they become obsolete and forgotten.
Amazing way you put it. Now, we do definitely have to run out of this segment, but I want to ask you guys, what role do you think social media has played in the fight? Because you mentioned your daughter and camera real quick. You know, what role do you think social media has played and is playing in the fight against patriarchy?
I think even the case we have at hand, I mean, it's been all over the place. It's been everywhere.
Awareness is different these days.
Yes, it's
That's one thing you have to give social media.
Which is why I kind of said it's always been. The cameras is what's
yeah, it was changing.
Yes. Things are changing. It's not like before. And I feel, just like what she was saying, about support. If the women in the house stood to say, this is wrong, the narrative will be different.
And just in raising kids as well, because you mentioned that, like when you're raising kids, don't raise them differently. Girls, boys, teach them, because we tend to do that subconsciously.
There's so many skills that I call life skills. It's not a woman's skill. Learning to cook for yourself is not a woman's skill. It's a life skill that everybody needs. And I'm thankful for social media because it has its pros, it has its cons. But as long as many of us can now look at everything, it's like a TV you can play back. You might be able to take a stand back and look at the issues again and see it from a different light. Because sometimes when you are in a situation, you might not really understand what is happening. But when you take a step back and you're able to look at it from like an out-of-body experience, you'll be like, okay, I should have spoken like that. This girl was
Thank you so much, ladies, for stopping by and just sharing your 1, 2, 3 cents. I definitely appreciate that. As this year's theme is, we accelerate action. So we put action behind every single, you know, conversations that we have. But thank you guys so much for coming, Miss Prudence and Lolo. We're going to go on a quick break. When we come back, the show continues.
Hello, my beautiful women and ladies. I want to take this moment to wish all the amazing women, mothers, sisters, girls around the world a happy International Women's Day. Today, I celebrate your right to equality, empowerment, and your unconditional support. I urge you to focus on yourself. Embrace your uniqueness and unapologetically be yourself. To all the amazing mothers and women, I salute your strength, your resilience, and unwavering determination. Remember, your voice matters. You have the right to speak up and speak out whenever necessary. To the girl child, I want you to know that you are stronger than you think, and your voice is louder than you can ever imagine.
Welcome back to the show. This is Rubbing Minds. It is our International Women's Day special. I definitely kicked Ebuka to the side today to take on this space as we would be forging on with conversations. Now, Nigeria enjoys an almost heavy presence of women in certain sectors. We've come a long way from fighting to be heard, fighting to be given a chance, to actually finding women in leading sectors, the banking industry, for instance, the tech space, academia, powerhouses, media, communications. And today, joining me is none other than this powerhouse, Miss Francesca Uriri, who is the founder of Leading Ladies Africa. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
I haven't seen you in ages. Happy International Women's Day.
Thank you, honey.
And month.
And month. And month. He just has to check that month in.
Because you put this too much.
Is it?
How many Mother's Days are coming?
2.
There's still Day of the Girl Child.
Yes.
And you now took a whole month.
Yes.
You know, Ebuka said this while we were in the studio, that at his church at some point, there was a Father's Day, and even we decided to do Thanksgiving
on Father's Day, my church,
Father's
women did Thanksgiving.
Well,
You still made it about you.
Don't we?
We don't have enough opportunities to talk about these things, Ebuka, that's
I'm
why.
not complaining.
Exactly.
Thank you. So let's talk about, you know, Leading Ladies Africa. What was your biggest challenge in breaking into your industry as a woman?
I think that, I mean, to just level set, I think that the challenges have been somewhat similar.
Okay.
I'm Nigerian, I'm a woman, I've dealt with patriarchy, I deal with patriarchy, but I think sort of like the biggest thing would be just the mountain of gender norms. You're supposed to, you're not supposed to. Why are you doing that? Women don't do that. Where I'm from, da-da-da. So just systemic barriers and the huge mountain of gender norms, I think, has just been the biggest thing.
I want to ask the two-part question, sorry. What does Leading Ladies Africa do, on the one hand? And then secondly, I want to understand why, what you think is the bigger issue with all of what we've been talking about. Because misogyny and patriarchy is a global issue. But Nigeria has its peculiar issues, culture and religion, right? And those ones are deep-rooted. Especially that religion one. It's like this is what God said or Allah said or whatever it is. Those ones have become almost cultural for us as well. So you're not bringing in all the, okay, a Yoruba woman should do this, one, a Yoruba man does this, all of that. How does that play into all of these conversations? Because even if you can break the global issues, those deep-rooted Nigerian ones seem very heavy.
Okay, so let's start with LLA, as we like to call ourselves, Leading Ladies Africa. We work to advance gender equity, not equality, equity, and I'll tell you what the difference is. Equity, socio-economic justice, and diversity for African women and girls. And what does that mean in a nutshell? We want to make sure that women have access to opportunities, so things like mentoring, equipping them for businesses, funding. We want to make sure that they have opportunities to advance themselves as they go along. And then the second bit that you asked, the Nigerian thing, is still very linked to norms. And I'll explain again what I mean by that. Norms are acceptable societal sort of like rules of how people should behave or not behave. Norms also affect men. So when people say, why are you crying? But men don't cry. Or when they say things like, Igbo men, XYZ, whatever that is. Those are normative behaviors that are carried on from generation to generation, and they then shape how people behave. So I'm Isoko, for example, and they say things like, oh, Isoko women, there's a big drink, oh. I, for example, can't hold my liquor. But there are norms around that that shape. And then because of those norms, anybody who is Isoko goes up and thinks, oh, I must know how to drink. And then it shapes behavior. The way they think. So that is why norms are so dangerous. And they also affect culture, because what did Chimamanda say? People are the ones who create and make culture. And so it then becomes this ripple effect of misogyny, misandry, you know, and all the other isms and andries that affect men and women.
But let's bring it back to the career and the work first. As I said while I was introducing you, we've come a long way from when it wasn't even heard of to have women, you know, be the MDs of banks, for instance, or women in tech, you know, and I know just off of what you talked about with the norms, there's a lot of bias already that goes into women in leadership role. But how important do you think it is for women to continue to assume those roles? And do you think, in your opinion, we're there yet? Because just before you came on, we talked about what has been currently going on in the news and, you know, in the Senate, for instance, and we found out in this particular situation that there are 105 senators and only 4 are women.
Yes.
So are we really assuming those leadership roles?
Yeah. We're not. I think, long story short, we're not. But we need to. Okay. Because there's a business case for it. Data shows that when you have more women in leadership roles, in companies and organizations, in politics, in policy, you have better laws, you have better policies, you do better business. This is data. This is not Francesca being biased. Of course, I'm biased for women being in leadership. But the data shows that is because why? Women bring a sort of diverse, inclusive, more empathetic perspective to leadership, to business, to policies, to politics. And then, again, it has a ripple effect on the organizations we see, on the sort of policies that are made into laws and regulations and all of that. So, yes, absolutely, women are required, not just from the optics perspective. And I like to balance it out by saying we don't only need them in positions of leadership.
Do you think it's more optics that has been going on of late?
I think so. Okay. I think so, because that would explain why you sort of have, that would explain, so for example, you have a senator, a Nigerian senator, she's a powerful woman, but yet her voice is not heard on the Senate floor. Or you have female CEOs who are disrespected and disregarded in the boardroom.
I mean, that's a whole lot of shebang to get into. So hold that thought. Because it's getting hot in here. We're going to go on a quick break and listen to an amazing International Women's Day message from another woman, a pioneer and a leader. Watch this.
Hello, I'm Funke Akindele, and today I speak to every woman, every girl out there that has ever been told she's not enough, that has ever been made to feel small, that has ever had to fight twice as hard to be seen, heard, or valued. Listen to me clearly. You are bold, you are powerful, you are strong, you are intelligent, you are beautiful, you are worthy, and never ever you doubt that at any time. In line with this year's International Women's Day celebration, we must accelerate action in empowering the next generation, because women are not just backbones of families. We are architects of communities, innovators of industry, and the driving force. The world is watching. It's time they see you for who you truly are. Unbreakable, unstoppable, undeniably powerful is our time. Let us accelerate action. Let us make history. Happy International Women's Day.
Absolutely amazing. We'll have many more of that as the show progresses. Now, joining us also, or joining Francesca, to push the conversations forward is Ms. Lola Olukweu. Thank you very much. She's a co-founder and COO at Africa Technologies, a lady in tech.
Iberia Technologies.
Welcome to the show. I'm sorry, I'm not wearing my glasses. I should. I have to say, turning 40, the eyesight's actually, yeah.
It's a
well,
real
welcome
thing.
to the show. We've been having this interesting conversation about careers and leadership role. And I do want to ask you a question because, you know, I've always been very curious about women in tech. And it has to do with pay. Because we know how, you know, there's always a difference in, you know, gender. When
there's
we talk
money
about
in tech.
Pay and gender roles and how men are perceived to earn more than, not perceived, they earn more than we do. So let's talk about it in the world of tech. How is that? Is it the same over there? And what do you feel about this, you know, equality in terms of payment as well?
Okay, I think I'd first start by saying that for most of the multinational companies, there's like a general range.
Okay.
Where as long as you, by merit, are on that range, you earn that amount.
Even in Nigeria?
Yes.
Okay, interesting.
However, sometimes you find scenarios where it's different. For instance, if you're an engineer, if you're a female engineer and a male engineer, they just believe that as a female, you would always have one reason to be absent. It's just a perception, really. Because if you really look at the hours you're working as hard, but just the general perception that, oh, she may become emotional one of these days, or she, you know, she may just have a moment, or she would need some time. So let's just exclude her. You know?
No, they talk about it. I've heard that conversation as well. That women do school run more than men, so they have to take longer lunch breaks.
So even without
like
maternity breaks as well.
Exactly. So even without you mentioning it, it's just you're just profiled to just be that. So in that scenario, you find situations where sometimes you're excluded from maybe certain rotas just because they believe you won't be available. So, of course, that naturally affects your pay because you're now not earning as much as your counterparts who are males.
So what do you both think we need to do, or what systemic changes need to happen for more women to, you know, take on more leadership roles, not for aesthetics and not for optics, for exactly every single thing we've spoken about, where they earn the same, even if not even more, because in my opinion, you know, having women in leadership roles, you can see the difference. And I'm not being biased, but you actually started the conversations by saying that. We've seen how when you have women in those roles and you have men, there's a clear difference. It could be because women are almost trained to think that they would fail, and we have to put in twice as hard work to, I mean, that's how I see it. It's like if a woman assumes this role, at the back of her mind, she already feels like they're counting on me to fail. If I burst out, she's a woman, emotional reaction. But what are the things that you think needs to happen for these changes to really take place in Nigeria?
I think it starts with self, to be honest. If you're very self-aware and you know who you are and what you can bring to the table, it will be hard for any external factor to influence that negatively. And then the next thing, I think, is the ability to ensure that you are as empowered, or probably more empowered. Because the truth is, sometimes if there is that segregation or that discrimination, you have to work extra hard to really, you know, prove yourself, or, you know, show that, you know, you are up to the task. So the first thing is, if you're very self-aware and you're very assured that you can really, it's a mountain you can climb, then you have to know this and know it just as you know your name. And then you need to strongly empower yourself and ensure that even while empowering yourself, the opportunities that show up, you don't pass them up. Show up regardless.
But you sound like you kind of she's looking like she doesn't completely agree. So let's talk about it.
So I kind of want to take it a click forward.
Yes.
Because you have a lot of women who are already doing this, right? They're doing the personal work. But if you do personal work and you meet systems that don't shift,
there's not much.
Then there's not much traction. So the systems, the systemic barriers, we must dismantle them. I'll give an example. When the governor of Kwara State, Governor Abdulrazak, when he came in, he made it mandatory to have an almost 50-50 gender-balanced cabinet. Nobody has ever done that in Nigeria. It's not magic, it's not rocket science. So you must create systems so that when the woman is prepped and ready and competent and qualified, she enters into a system that does not disrupt her trajectory. You have women who are of childbearing age in career. Make sure there's care. Make sure they have maternity leave. Make sure you don't penalize them for coming back to work and say, you know, is your brain, baby brain, is it really working? I've heard that said to a colleague.
Wow.
Says, are you really sharp up there? So you must dismantle those, and it's called systemic bias, where you build things into the system that actually impede progress. So governments must work with that, organizations must work with that to remove those systemic biases and then fully allow women to thrive. Rwanda, the country's cabinet, also has equal, the president mandated that. Nigeria.
105.
Well,
Well, I want to ask both of you real quick, because Ibuka probably has a question. How important do you think mentorship is for women? Because we talk about empowerment, and we talk about, you know, just because Miss Lola also mentioned being prepared, and again, you know, which is a great point. How important it is it for people to, you know, for there to be more mentorship programs, you know, and more, you know, just mentorship in the workspace? For what does that look like, and how important is that to breaking these barriers?
Again, Toke, I'll let Dr. O speak. Mentorship is great. Black women are over-mentored and under-sponsored. So it's fantastic, but we actually need people who say, we want to make her CEO. Make her CEO in 2 years. And what's the blueprint for that? That's not mentorship, that's sponsorship. That's like she's ready. Mentorship is getting you ready. You know, you have all of the information, Sponsorship is like the rubber hits the road. So we need to move again from mentorship to actual sponsorship, where we're channeling and really galvanizing women into these roles.
Yeah, to add to that, I'd also say that I think it's also important to have both side by side. Because imagine you have the door open for you, which has happened even in my case, where I've had to sponsor people. You also have to kind of handhold them through how to enter that door. Because sometimes you find scenarios where you have it almost so easy. I mean, of course, that's few women, but you have it so easy because there are some sponsors that are opening the doors. But then you go there, you really don't know the protocol around the room, right? So mentorship and sponsorship, I think, should really continue to go hand in hand.
And just because you're speaking, and I know the role that you hold in your company, how important do you think for women who have arrived through that door, for women who hold positions as CEOs and, you know, MDs, how important is it for them to mentor and sponsor the younger women who might possibly look at them and think, how do I become you?
It cannot be overemphasized, the importance of this, because the truth is, if you don't replicate yourself, that role may become redundant to a woman, and then a male will replace. You must have like a plan. First to replace yourself, and then to replicate yourself on the table. Because if we are saying, oh, it's the parity isn't there and all of that, that means there are two things we're looking at now. There's replication and replacement. You won't be on that table forever. So it is so important that women should be patient with other women, especially the ones coming behind. We are in an era where everything is almost always microwaved. It's not like in those eras where, you know, things have to go pace by pace. Everything is on a fast track now. And to be honest, for older women, they get a bit impatient with the younger ones. Like, it seems you're not serious, but that's not really the case.
Sorry, very quickly before we go, 30 seconds. I know you have an event coming up.
Yes.
Let people know about it and how they can be a part of it, very quickly.
So we have the Leadership and Inclusion Summit happening on the 15th of March at the Wheat Baker. What is it? It's essentially a convening for policymakers, government officials, the private sector, all within the gender equity space. We really want to create a blueprint and frameworks that actually work for women to advance in leadership roles across the country. So that's essentially what it is. And people can go to the Leading Ladies Africa page on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and get details on how to get on the wait list.
Are men allowed to sneak in?
Men are allowed to be very present.
Thank you.
Okay, well, now well, thank you so much, Mrs. Lola Olukweu. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, my pleasure.
Thank you, guys. That was very impactful. All right, we'll go on another quick break. When we come back, the conversation continues.
Yes, it does.
Yes, they rise, they fight and break the mold. They shatter glass ceilings and break records. They are the ones who pave the way and light the path. Like Dr. Adadevo, who lost her life for humanity's sake. She was the first doctor to encounter the Ebola mite. She stood tall and fought brave. And there are so many other women who have broken barriers in different industries like entertainment, politics, banking, medicine, etc. Women like Chimamanda, who speaks truth to power. Women like Mary Celesso, who stopped the killing of twins. Women like Folorunso Alakija, who built businesses in an hour. Women like Olufumila Ransom Kuti, who stood our ground against all odds. It is not just about women with education or degree. It's about women who toil day and night to make ends meet. The market women who are in the market selling their wares, hawking their wares just to feed their children. Women who are passionate about what they do. Women who work day and night to put food on the table and cater to their family. Every woman deserves flowers, regardless of her position, shape, size, education, occupation, and status. Every woman deserves praise and respect, regardless of her condition, for the battles they have won and the barriers they have broken. To all these women, we say thank you. Thank you for your strength. Thank you for your resilience. Thank you for your beauty. I am proud to be a woman. Keep being the queen that you are. Keep being the best of you. Happy International Women's Day. Happy International Women's Day.
Now, if I came to the world again, I would definitely come as a woman, absolutely beautiful, which leads us to a segment that I'm most passionate about, femininity. Women are constantly told how to speak, what to wear. We're judged by this societal expectation that I just don't know where it comes from and why it even exists. Now, joining me to delve into all of that and explore misconceptions and the path towards a future where every woman can finally breathe and be allowed to be who she wants to be, how she wants to be, and when she wants to arrive, is Beauty Tokura. Hi, Beauty. How are you?
Toke.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Happy International Women's Day
to you too. You look absolutely beautiful.
Thank you. You look stunning.
Thank you. Ebuka, do you want to say hello? It's almost like he's not here.
I'm just a visitor today.
He's not here.
Happy International Women's Day and month.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here today.
So let's delve into the conversation. In your own words, what does owning your femininity mean to you?
For me, I'd say owning your femininity, to me, it means embracing who you are as a woman, letting go of societal expectations or even opinions, really. Embracing yourself as you are. You can be delicate, you can be soft, you can be strong. It could be a mix of the two. It's just accepting that this is who I am and this is how I want to portray my individuality to the world and I want people to see me. So basically, that's what it means to me.
So, why do you think people, especially men, enjoy... Feel free to butt in.
You are going to be on the hot seat.
Yes, feel free to butt in.
I'm not saying anything.
Why do you think... And I would also want you to also shed some light into this. You know, because at the beginning of the show, you talked about cultural practices as well and religion, which could also be at the bedrock of certain things. Yes. But why do you think, most especially men, is what I want to focus on, you hear things like, my wife would never... As a married woman, you are not allowed. You are not allowed. You cannot dress. Like, why do you think they like to tell us what to do?
I think the whole men wanting to dictate to a woman how to dress, how to behave, how to live, it comes from a deeply, you know, ingrained system of patriarchy. It's all in a bid to control. That's the word that comes to mind. Before now, you know, we had gender roles. I mean, before now, women were only expected to do the domestic, passive, you know, things. But now women are stepping up, they're taking up space. And men see women that have their own voice and are confident as disruptive, sort of, to a status quo that already exists. It's like a system that's already in place. And once you begin to speak up, once a woman knows her power, knows her voice, it's already like a red flag. They see you as a red flag. Even as small as I am, I've had people tell me, you're always too busy. You're always too busy. Someone that liked me once was telling me, you're too busy. And I'm like,
let me just correct you, baby. There's nothing small about you. That's where it begins. There's absolutely nothing small about you.
But you see, when you continue to say that to a woman, you're making me doubt myself. You know, it's almost like you're trying to squeeze me into a box. Instead of allowing me reach my full potential. So it's all in a bid to control at the end of the day.
Want to say something?
I actually want to do a follow-up question, sorry, because, you know, talking about the culture and the religion thing we're talking about, you're from the north, you're from Taraba State, and there's a perception of northern culture and what it's supposed to be. You went from that to be Miss Nigeria. And pageantry is seen a certain way as well, you know. What did it take you to do something like that? Because I wanted you to answer that because of other people, not necessarily wanting to go into pageantry, but who want to break cycles, because you did that by breaking a cycle.
Yeah, of course. So I'll tell my personal story. I enjoy telling my stories, by the way. You know, before Miss Nigeria, I was most beautiful girl Taraba for 2 years. But before that, you know, I went to my parents the first time, and obviously, you know the answer, it was a no. It was non-negotiable, like just no, right? You know what I did? I had to go to my pastor. I'm not joking. And I spoke to him, and I said, see what I want to do. So he went to my parents and said, look at her like a Queen Esther. So that was the angle that we came in through.
Religion.
That was it, exactly. Thank you. That was just me being a bit smart and me understanding my parents and the society that, you know, I function in. And one thing I would say I did at that level, I had my parents fully involved in what I was doing. So that gave them a bit of comfort, right? Because at the end of the day, I grew up in a northern home where it's a very strict setting. Like everything is dictated, how you look, how you... In fact, you're not allowed to speak too much. They think you feel bigger than that, you're aggressive. You know, it's a lot. And then being Miss Nigeria, there was no support. Now, for the Miss Nigeria, it didn't make sense to my dad. To him, it was stay in school, stay in school, stay in school, right? But I still went on to do it. Now, I was called stubborn. That's the first word that comes to mind. They'll call you a stubborn girl. You're not listening to parents. But I knew that what I wanted to do was bigger than me at the time. I had to take that step so that all the other girls who are waiting in line, looking, can see that there's nothing like you dreaming too much.
So let me ask you this, because you touched on the stubborn. How do you think name-calling and shaming women affects the confidence that, you know, a girl child will have?
I think name-calling and shaming is all in a bid to put you in a box, to be honest. These are labels, right?
But how do you rise above that? Because everyone on this chair, I mean, he's a man, he probably wouldn't be able to relate, but I like to say this. We never, you know, I don't know Margaret Thatcher personally, but she might have been the nicest person that ever existed. But because of the environment she had to work in, she became stern. And now when you think about Margaret Thatcher, what comes to your mind is Iron Lady, right? Those are the sort of like name-calling and slut-shaming sometimes, you know, that people would get to just to try and, as you said, break down. But how do you think it affects... Because I'm sure at some point in her later life, she embraced the Iron Lady and, you know, almost became that...
I mean, the whole idea of putting labels on you. That's what I call, you know, shaming and name callings, right? The whole idea of putting those labels on you is to limit you. It's to make you feel guilty for something that there's nothing to be guilty about. It's to put you in a box. It's to make you feel less of yourself so that you can shrink yourself, you can step down instead of owning your full potential. And for me, the message is I need women to know that these labels are not going to empower you. They're only to bring you down. So the more you begin to see it that way, it's easier to break through and step above those labels.
So follow-up question, how do you, when you hear femininity and feminism, do you think the two can peacefully coexist?
Yes, of course, 100%.
Do you think it can?
I think it can.
But feminism has just been bastardized by people who want to interpret it.
Well,
a certain way.
We have
people who want to understand those interpretations a certain way.
I think the real problem comes from people not really understanding the two.
Yes.
Right?
So can you shed some light on that?
For me, I see femininity as more of like the nature of who you are as a woman, right? Like who you are as a human being, the traits, the behaviors. And feminism for me, the first thing that comes to mind is more of a battle for equality. For women to be able to pursue their, you know, ambitions, free from discrimination. You know, I studied law. So I'm thinking of it more like a movement that is bigger than who you are as a person.
And do you think that when you call it things like battle is where it's a problem? A movement?
Well, it's a...
maybe, because when we say battle, we're already like, okay.
It's probably a battle.
it probably is, yeah.
No, but because at the end of the day, you can be a feminist. You can... Feminism is all about advocacy. Yes. I wish a lot of feminists actually knew that. You can be a feminist and still be full of feminine energy. And feminine energy can still be soft and still strong at the same time.
That's what I like.
There can be a beautiful balance of the both. It's knowing who you are, being who you are, and just sticking to that person.
I actually want to end this show with a question to you.
Feminists don't hate men, please.
Okay. I'll tell you with a question to you, because you are sort of the poster child of rising above name calling.
Yes.
You've done it, and it has even become sort of the norm for other people to say, oh, this is how Toke did it, so let's do it. You know, so how have you been able to do it? Because we've seen you go through what you've gone through. Yes. People said what they wanted to say, but you've continued to shine regardless. You know, how do you do it?
I think for me, personally, I think my resistance came from a place of pain. At a very young age in life, I witnessed a systemic change that happened in my family. You know, and that shook my world to the point where I felt nothing else mattered. Having to bury both parents on the same day is pretty steep. You know what I mean? So when I went through that, I'm yet to see what will happen
can
more
be worse.
than that.
What can be worse?
What can be worse than literally saying goodbye to the two people who, without even knowing that that was literally going to be the change that your life would take. So I feel like from a place of pain rose power, and you know, just turning my pain into purpose sort of helped me, because not everyone's going to like you, and that's great. But they don't know me.
You're inspiring like the next generation of girls.
She has.
To be honest, to know that you can have your voice, be your person, and those things do not matter.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Beauty. Thank you very much, Toke, for being here today, and thank you very much to all our viewers for joining us on this amazing episode of International Women's Day. Come back soon. Hopefully it doesn't take you too long.
Father's Day. I'd like to host Father's Day, by the way.
Like I always say, you can put the conversation on social media. Please use the hashtag Rubbin Minds when you send us a message. I'll see you next Sunday. Thanks, Toke.
Bye, friends.
Nice.
Don't just stand